Newly disclosed figures and internal documents are raising fresh doubts about natural gas drilling in the United States. According to the New York Times, well-placed financial analysts and experts have circulated warnings about the feasibility and profitability of drilling in shale gas wells across the nation. An August 2009 memo from the firm HiRez6 Drilling Data says, quote, "The word in the world of independence is that the shale plays are just giant Ponzi schemes and the economics just do not work." Earlier this year, an analyst at PNC Wealth Management compared natural gas projects to the dot-com boom, saying, quote, "Money's pouring in, even though drilling is inherently unprofitable." In another memo, a retired geologist for a major oil giant writes, quote, "These corporate giants are having an Enron moment. They want to bend light to hide the truth," unquote. A review of more than 9,000 wells show many wells are failing to meet industry projections, with just 10% recouping their estimated costs after 7 years. Just 20% of wells in 3 highly regarded shale formations in Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas are believed to actually be profitable. The previously undisclosed data could raise questions about whether companies are illegally inflating claims about the size and productivity of their wells. A former Enron executive who went on to work for an energy company compared the behavior of shale gas firms to his former employer Enron, writing, quote, "I wonder when they will start telling people these wells are just not what they thought they were going to be."
The other beneficiaries of all this hullabaloo are the executives of the shale gas companies themselves. The prime example of that is the CEO of Chesapeake. In 2008, the profits dropped 50%. He paid himself $100 million that year in bonuses and salary. He even got the company to buy his private art collection back, which is not fine art, it's a bunch of prints or something, for $12.1 million. This is at a time when the shares had dropped 60%. So, you know, the scam starts with the shareholders themselves. It's just not just the farmers and the landowners and whatnot, but it's with the shareholders.
Our analysis is, we've been extremely cautious. We know that our work will be scrutinized word by word, number by number. We're well aware of that. And so we've been extremely cautious. We've documented every number we've had. If we can't document a number, we don't use it. When we look at 20 years, including the methane, shale gas is the worst of the fossil fuels. It is worse than coal, far worse than oil. It's worse than conventional gas as well. I mean, the leakage occurs all over the place. For shale gas, the initial flowback period, with all that water waste coming up in the first week or two, there's also just free flow of methane to the atmosphere at that time. Huge amounts of methane at that time. But even after the well is brought into production, you're getting routine leakage. You know, there are between 50 and 100 valves and connections at each well site. Things leak, you know. Compressors leak, valves leak. Anyone who works with equipment knows that there are leaks.
This is a FLIR video. It shows what you can't see with the human eye. That's methane being emitted from the completion, actually the finishing, of a well in Susquehanna County. Those clouds are methane. You would not be able to see them by the naked eye. This compressor station, this is what you won't see from gas compressor stations with the naked eye. That's what it looks like to the naked eye. This is what it looks like under FLIR. That's natural gas coming up outside the well. Hear it? Okay, so that natural gas is going into the atmosphere. It will continue to go into the atmosphere for the life of the well. It's also possible that that migration outside the well could cause underground migration of methane and any other hydrocarbons mixed with the methane into an underground source of drinking water. This happens frequently.
If you look at the large transmission pipes, the ones that are moving at long distance, half of those pipelines in the United States are more than 50 years old. And some of them are 100 years old. And these things leak, you know.
And
we
is
saw
that
that
dangerous?
explosion back in the San Francisco Bay Area last year. You know, massive city blocks wiped out from a gas explosion. That's because of a leak in a transmission line. These things leak. Accidents happen. I wouldn't want to live near one of these salt cavern gas storage facilities. The potential for leakage and potential for accidents just seems too high to me.
We have Chris Denton here, who is an attorney from Elmira, New York. He represents coalitions of landowners, and most of these landowners would are probably they want to see drilling on their land. Is that fair to say?
Indeed, that's why they form the coalitions. But from a landowner's point of view, we don't regard hydraulic fracturing as the see-all, be-all, end-all. There are significant problems with hydraulic fracturing that affect production. I don't think there's anybody in the industry that doesn't acknowledge that high-volume hydraulic fracturing does damage Marcellus and black shale formations when it's used. There are alternatives. We're requiring in our leases with the coalitions that they use the best practices for drilling and completion, not just necessarily the cheapest or the most common. And right now, hydrofracking would be the cheapest and most common.
Stan Scobie is the founding director of Physicians, Scientists, and Engineers for Safe Energy, as well as a principal of New Yorkers for Sustainable Energy statewide. Stan, we're going to begin with you. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
New York's making a mistake in separating gas wells, gas wells and the pipelines that serve them. They're basically inseparable. There aren't any wells without pipelines. There aren't any pipelines without wells. Why is this important? When they drill a well, they need to clear it. That is, to let it run for a while to get the junk out, the drilling waste that's left over, the odds and ends, the gooky stuff that comes up from underneath. Usually that's done by venting and flaring. Venting and flaring wastes the gas. So that's contrary to New York law. We're not supposed to waste natural resources. That's a clear legal statement in New York law and environmental conservation law.
Fracked gas is not a bridge fuel, not a transition fuel. The process of fracking is dirtier than mountaintop coal removal. It is burning our bridges to a sustainable future.
Why are Americans allowing the fossil fuel industry to keep them addicted to their expensive products?
What if there was a fuel we could produce in New York that wouldn't wreck our precious aquifers, rivers, and lakes? A fuel that would provide lots and lots of jobs for New Yorkers, not transplanted Texans. A fuel that would strengthen our family farms across our beautiful state. A fuel which would help rebuild our rural communities and doesn't lower property values. A fuel that, when produced, would sequester excess carbon out of our atmosphere. A fuel which builds the soil up as it grows on fallow, idle land which aren't growing crops or require the clear cutting of our majestic forest. A fuel unlike frack gas, which is environmentally dirty or dirtier than mountaintop coal removal. A novel fuel that is truly green.
It only takes 70 days to grow a crop of grass for pellets with little or no chemicals. It takes 70 million years to make fossil fuels. Grass pellets, along with other biocrops grown and processed locally, create local ag, factory, and trucking jobs.
When consumed locally, they provide affordable fuel to heat homes and businesses. Grass pellets emit up to 90% less greenhouse gases than oil, coal, or natural gas. Unlike frack gas, biocropped energy won't potentially ruin aquifers, farms, property values, the wine industry, tourism, which are all New York's golden goose. In just 10 years of growing California megaflora trees, America would produce as much energy from all of the oil drilling in Alaska.
If every wastewater treatment plant in the United States, without any modification, used its sewage effluent to grow algae and ponds, it would produce enough bio-oils in 10 years to equal all the Alaska oils.
If we harness the wind energy in just North Dakota, Texas, and Montana, America would generate enough electrical energy to power our whole country.
By harnessing just 7% of our existing urban area with photovoltaic solar panels, America would provide 100% of its electricity.
We just don't need frack gas with all of its risk.
And this is what the gas industry doesn't want to stop. They don't want you to see this. See, this is the solar resource here. Okay. This is 23,000 terawatt years per year. Now, a terawatt year is 8.76 times 10 to the 12 kilowatt hours. Right? The world energy use is 16 terawatt years per year. So we got 23,000 is our resource, 16. So that's the whole world energy use, 16. And there's some other things on this chart. There's tides, geothermal, hydro, biomass. This is ocean heat technology, wind, which is really just another form of solar energy. Wind is. Okay, now, here's our fossil resources. We got a lot of coal, uranium, petroleum. Here's our natural gas up here, 215 terawatt years per year. So we got 23,000. Now, the thing is, though, is that all these things over here, these happen every year. Every year you get 23,000. Every year. This is 215. This is forever. That's it. Right? So they should be nervous. They should be very nervous. So this is what I mean when I say not only is there plenty of resource, not only are they wrong, in saying that there's not, they're orders of magnitude wrong. They're factors of 10 wrong. Okay? That little dot over there, that is the area, which is 0.07% of the world's land area. That's the area of photovoltaics, these kind of panels right here. This is a photovoltaic panel. It converts light to electricity. Area equal to that little dot would power the entire planet. And that's with sort of the modest efficiency of today's photovoltaics, which is about 15%. In the U.S., if we wanted to power the entire United States of America with photovoltaics, it would take about 25,000 square kilometers. Now, the Nevada test site and the training range associated with it is about 12,000 square kilometers. So 2 of the Nevada test sites would power the entire United States of America if we covered it with photovoltaics. By contrast, hydropower, which takes up 4 times as much area right now, only supplies 7% of the U.S. electricity. In New York, we have about 3% of our land area is covered by buildings and parking lots, and it would only take about 0.75%, or less than 1/3 of that area, covered with these solar cells to generate 100% of New York's electricity. So Binghamton actually gets 73% of what San Diego gets. Now here's something embarrassing. The world leader in solar power is Germany. And the sunniest place in Germany only gets 1,250 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. And yet they have 10 times more installed capacity than the entire United States of America and 300 times more than New York. The cost of solar cells, these are semiconductor devices made of silicon. They have been going down. Each time factories double production, the cost goes down 20%. And that has been happening for 30 years. Solar industry is growing rapidly. Other states and other countries are getting in on the jobs, and we would like to get in on it here in New York.
Do we want to remain slaves to the oil and gas industries? Haven't we waited long enough to harness the energy from biocrops, wind, solar, wave, geothermal, and tidal energy? Back in 1969, Americans landed on the moon. Why can't we break the chains of fossil fuel tyrants and free ourselves with renewable and sustainable energy?
The Montana wilderness was saved from drilling by a coalition of ranchers, outfitters, environmentalists, with the major driving force being the Blackfoot Nation. Blackfoot are large people, imposing in stature and big-hearted, a physical and spiritual match to the landscape, while occupying their ancestral homeland. Their 19th century reputation as fierce and fearsome warriors survives to this day. Heavy Runner, leader of the Warrior Brave Dog Society, said, "What you're doing is putting us on the road to extinction. We are here to notify you that we have no alternatives. We are not going to stand back." Their resolve saved the Montana wilderness. Closer to home, we are thankful to have the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee to join with us to protect the land.